Welcome to the third episode in my new series, The Show Training 101, where we'll take an in-depth look at various mechanics and control schemes, analyze how they're implemented in MLB 15 The Show, and explore the ways in which you can leverage your newfound knowledge to take your game to the next level. So today we'll be taking a look at analog hitting. Now, analog hitting has received a bit of a facelift this year, the structural changes of which have given rise to some community backlash and harsh criticism. In particular, Sony's removal of the stride component within the mechanic has left analog hitting feeling like a shell of its former self. Disgruntled fans have equated the new mechanic to it being a simple button press. You press the right stick up for a normal swing, right or left for a contact swing, or down and then up for a power swing. It sounds pretty intuitive, but also pretty simple, right? And you'd be right to think that, especially considering how the newly refined feature has been marketed. Except, you'd be wrong. So while it is true that analog hitting no longer involves a stride component, its simplification hasn't reduced the mechanic to a timing-based button press. No, it's actually quite a bit more than that. So naturally, the question becomes, what exactly is analog hitting? How is the mechanic programmed? And how can I use this knowledge to help me at the plate? So let's dive right in. Believe it or not, analog hitting does in fact require the batter to match a plate coverage indicator, or PCI, with the ball in order to make solid contact. But with analog hitting, the PCI lacks a visual indicator and cannot be maneuvered pre-pitch. Instead, the angle at which you direct the right stick up to swing corresponds to bat placement in the zone. Except if analog hitting requires the user to press the stick up to swing and proper PCI placement is necessary to make contact, how does one hit a pitch that's low in the zone? Well, that's a great question. The answer? Well, there are two variables that determine PCI placement, each variable individually governing horizontal and vertical placement of the PCI. The first is user-controlled, the angle at which the right stick is lifted vertically when swinging. This right stick movement governs bat placement on the x-axis. The second variable is not user-controlled, that is, player ratings dictate bat placement on the y-axis. So let's just take a look at how this unfolds. If one were to flick the right stick straight up at 90 degrees with each pitch, as is described in your MLB guide, your PCI would be positioned somewhere in the middle third of the plate, with player ratings subsequently determining the vertical placement of the PCI. With this method, it would be extremely difficult to make contact on balls that were outside of the middle section of the plate. Instead, one must coordinate the right stick to match the horizontal placement of the pitch. Each degree to which the right stick is shifted to the right or left signals a corresponding flat rate shift of the PCI to that horizontal direction. So, for example, if there's a pitch on the outside part of the plate with a right-handed player at bat, you would angle the right stick somewhere between straight up and directly to the right, whichever angle most appropriately coincides with the horizontal placement of the pitch. And then just let the player ratings play out to determine where the PCI is ultimately positioned on the vertical part of the plate. Now the same thing applies to a pitch inside on a right-handed hitter. Simply move the right stick between 90 degrees straight up and directly to the left, again whichever angle correlates most to the horizontal placement of the pitch. So remember, do not just flick the stick straight upwards to make contact. You won't hit consistently. It's essential that you match the right stick with the horizontal placement of the pitch, after which you can simply allow the player ratings to dictate vertical PCI placement. Okay, so before we get into the tips segment, I need to cover the contact swing. With analog hitting, the contact swing is simply an extension of the regular swing's mechanic, whereby flicking the right stick directly to the right or directly to the left results in your batter swinging far inside or far outside of the plate. Now the contact swing in analog hitting differs from its implementation in other hitting mechanics. With analog hitting, the contact swing allows you to hit pitches out of the strike zone, but it doesn't increase your timing windows, as is the case when employing the contact swing in both zone and directional hitting. When using analog hitting, the contact swing simply places the PCI out of the strike zone, of course dependent on the exact degree to which you position your right stick when swinging. If you swing the right stick directly to the right, the PCI will simply shift horizontally to the right of the strike zone, with player ratings again determining the vertical placement of the PCI. The same is also true when flicking the right stick directly to the left. So remember, if a pitch is down the middle or somewhere inside of the strike zone, the so-called contact swing will do anything but make contact. Now one last thing, by pressing down and then up on the right stick, you'll perform a power swing. The angle at which you move the stick down doesn't matter, but the angle at which you move it on the upswing does determine horizontal PCI placement. When exercising the power swing, your player will be given a bonus to power at the expense of constricted timing windows, so use at your own caution. Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of the mechanic, how can we use this knowledge to help us at the plate? Well, for one thing, do not select between the normal swing or contact swing pre-pitch. Because the contact swing is simply an extension of the normal swing mechanic, your ability to track the ball's release should then determine your right stick placement. If you see a pitch that's on the inside or outside of the strike zone that you just can't lay off, flicking the right stick to the right or left will provide you with the best chance to make contact. But if the pitch is inside the strike zone, you just subtly aim the right stick up and to the right or left to match the pitch's horizontal movement. Simply put, wherever the pitch takes you, so goes your thumb. Finally, make sure to study the swing info display after each pitch. As mentioned in my zone hitting guide, by holding the right trigger and selecting right or left on the D-pad, the swing info display will reveal hit timing and pitch location results. But most importantly, it will display your PCI, which is only available post-pitch when using analog hitting. Over the course of a game, you can analyze how closely the PCI aligned with pitch location and make adjustments accordingly. But remember, the vertical placement of the PCI is solely a product of player ratings. So you don't need to wonder why you didn't make good contact when you timed the ball well and matched the right stick with the horizontal motion of the pitch. That one you can blame on the computer. Okay, so that's all for this week. When breaking down the mechanic to its core components, we realized just how different the mechanic functions versus how it was originally expressed by the creators of the game and subsequently understood by the community. We also realized that this year's rendition of analog hitting is not synonymous with a button press, and instead functions as a middle ground between timing and zone hitting. And of course, we can leverage our newfound knowledge to take advantage when at the plate and take our game to the next level. Analog hitting. Swing the right stick and let it rip. Simple. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for weekly gaming content and more MLB 15 The Show guides. Also, being an aspiring video game journalist, I'd love for you to check out my review of MLB 15 and provide feedback. And lastly, stay tuned for a franchise playthrough as I attempt to take my beloved Chicago Cubs to the World Series. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, I'm out.